Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Max, your friendly neighborhood product trainer at HubSpot. I'm going to show you today how to set up a stupid, simple lead scoring strategy that you can start using today. Let's go. Okay, so first, before we get into the video, I just want to give a very quick disclaimer here, okay? I am not a consultant that is for hire. I work at HubSpot. I work on our learning development team. I help train all the new hires that come to HubSpot. I have the best job in the world, okay? The reason that I'm making all these videos is I genuinely have fun with this stuff, and I want to find a good way to give back to the community that's really given me a whole ton to really be excited about. So I hope these are helpful, but again, I'm not for hire. I work at HubSpot. I have a job. I love that job. That being said, if you do need additional outside help, you really should check out HubSpot's solution partners, all right? We have a ton of different solution partners. These are marketing agencies, sales agencies, other types of consulting agencies, web design agencies, all these wonderful companies that know how to use HubSpot, and they're vetted by HubSpot to be able to do work in your portals for you. So if you ever need additional consultants, those are the folks that you should go hire. Okay, so now that we have all of that out of the way, let's just establish a couple of things before we jump into the tool and I show you how to do this. The very first thing you need to think about when you tell yourself, I would like to start doing lead scoring in HubSpot, is you have to answer the question of why. Why are you going to lead score? Okay. In order to answer that question, you need to understand how lead scoring is going to be seen in HubSpot. All right. When you set up lead scoring, what happens is you build this contact property that has a number in it. All right. That number is going to either go up or down based on some positive or negative attributes that you set to make that number change. Okay. Now, you got to remember, when someone is actually looking at that number, all they see is a number. It doesn't really tell them anything specific, okay? And the biggest problem that I've seen in the past is that people try to use this one single number to measure two totally different things. Those two different things are level of engagement and how good of a fit someone is for your product or service. So let me give you an example of what I mean here, right? When we think about engagement could mean something like, has someone read a blog post? Has someone looked at a certain page? Has someone opened and clicked a certain email? All these things that kind of measure how much someone has interacted with your content and all of your marketing campaigns, okay? Fit is a little bit different, okay? What fit would mean is how good of a demographic fit is this lead or company or person who could potentially buy from me, right? So people generally measure fit by what their job title is, what industry are they in, how big is their company, and all these different factors that might be important for you, okay? It's going to be different depending on, what you value as a good fit. So the problem that I see when people do this is they build their lead scoring in a way where it adds points for things they've done on your website, but also factors that we know about them through information they've given us that determine if they're a good fit or not. The problem with that is when you look at that number inside of HubSpot, it doesn't really tell you why the score is the way it is, right? So you might be looking at something that looks like a high score, but it may be because they're a really good fit and they're not engaged, or they're very engaged and they're not a good fit, or maybe it's somewhere in the middle, but you really can't tell. When you look at that number, you want to know what it's actually measuring. So I highly recommend that you use the numeric lead scoring to basically tell you how engaged someone is, not how good of a fit they are. I'm going to show you how to use a custom property to measure how good of a fit someone is, to make it very easy for your salesperson or someone in marketing to actually see that. Now, the last thing is when you actually set up lead scoring, you need to communicate to whoever is going to be using that number what a high lead score actually is. Okay, what's the high end of the spectrum? What's the low end of the spectrum? And from that, you can kind of figure out what the middle of the spectrum is. That's totally going to be up to you because you can set up these positive and negative attributes in your lead scoring to give X amount of points for different things. Basically, what I would recommend is think of all the good actions that someone can take on your website, make a list of those, assign point values to them, and just kind of see what the high end of that number is. You could get a little more technical and make it from 1 to 100 and kind of divvy up your points differently depending on how you want to do it. There's a lot of stuff on HubSpot's blog that you can look at that give you a lot of good strategies for it. So I'd highly recommend that you do that and go check that out. But I'm going to show you right now in the tool how I would recommend setting this up so it's very easy to do. Before we get started, you need to know one thing. In order to do lead scoring in HubSpot, you need at least marketing professional or sales professional. So just keep that in mind, all right? You won't be able to to do this with the free version. In order to accomplish this method, we're going to create two different properties. One is going to be one of the scoring properties, and then the other one is going to be a custom property for fit. Finally, we're going to deploy a couple of different workflows to make all this stuff work together. Okay, so now that we're in the tool, why don't we go and set this up? The very first thing that I'm going to do is I am going to go into the properties setting, and we're going to create one new property, and we're going to edit an existing one. All right, so let's go to where it says settings at the very top. Let's scroll down to properties on the left-hand side. And what we're actually going to do is we're going to search properties for the default scoring property that already exists in HubSpot. And that's called HubSpot Score. So you can find this in here. What we're going to do, just to like remind ourselves that we're going to be using this to measure engagement level and not like demographic fit, we're going to change the name of HubSpot Score to Engagement Score. All right, just as a little reminder, this is how engaged someone is. It's not how good of a fit they are, okay? Because we want to measure one single thing here because it's one numeric value. Now, what I've already done here is kind of given you an example of something that you might want to add in here, right? So what I've done is I've given them 10 points, which is like a totally arbitrary random number that I came up with, that basically says, okay, give them 10 points if they view my pricing page, for example. Some other things you may want to consider putting in here is like other valuable page views on your site, people clicking call to action buttons, people opening and clicking links in emails. It could be people visiting from social. I mean, there could be a million different things that you would put in here. But the things that you would want to put in here are things that measure level of engagement. So what that means is don't put things in here that are like job title equals CEO or location or country equals somewhere specific or number of people on their teams equals something specific. That's all demographic fit information. That's not measuring how engaged someone is. So any of the scoring criteria or the positive or even negative attributes that you add in here should be about how engaged they are with your content, not information they've given you that tell you how good of a fit they are. Okay, so I'm going to let you and your teams decide on your own what you put in here. I'd also highly recommend that you check out the HubSpot blog. If you just search HubSpot blog lead scoring, I promise you're going to find a number of different articles that people at HubSpot have written about lead scoring strategies. And I would take from, a little bit of inspiration from that. Just make sure there's nothing in this engagement score that measures any demographic information. So information they've given you on forms that tells you how good of a fit they are. That's what the next property is going to be for, okay? So go ahead and save this when you're done. And a good way to just get started is like think about valuable actions people take on your site and just add some positive attributes. You really don't have to like bang your head over the keyboard thinking about all the different negative attributes. Just start with the positive ones, all right? The next thing we're going to do, I'm going to clear this little search right here. And we're going to create a property, okay? It's going to be a contact property because we're measuring, fit of contacts here, okay? Go ahead and put it into a group. Whatever group you put it in is really up to you. For the label, though, I'm just going to call this fit. You can call it whatever you want, but fit to me just kind of makes the most sense because we're measuring how good of a fit someone is for your product. So let's go ahead and hit next. Let's select a field type here, and we're going to do a drop-down select, okay? Now, I'm going to keep mine super simple here, okay? I'm going to have two options, bad fit and good fit. Very simple, okay? You can get more complex with this if you want. I highly recommend you keep it simple. This is supposed to be a stupid, simple lead scoring strategy, all right? So don't go crazy here. Don't over-engineer it, just like I wouldn't recommend you over-engineer anything in HubSpot, okay? So let's go ahead and hit create. Boom, awesome. So we have these two properties now, okay? So the first thing that I'm worried about when we think about lead score is who's using it. Right? So immediately, I think the easiest kind of low-hanging fruit here is that salespeople are going to use it, right? So the question is like, how can we make sure they see it? Well, there's two different places that they could see this. One, they could see it on an individual contact record when they're looking at an individual contact. Or two, they might want to see this in the filters view, and maybe they want to prioritize the contacts or the leads that they're reaching out to based on this engagement score or how good of a fit they are. Or maybe they want to like filter certain things out and really kind of hone in on just good fit leads. Could be anything, all right? So let me just show you this. What we're going to do is we're going to go into records customization on the top right here. So this top tab, and we are going to edit the contact record left sidebar, all right? So let's hit actions. We're going to hit edit. what I'm going to do is I'm going to adjust what shows up on the contact record. So here, this is my basic about section. For me, I have email, lifecycle stages, persona, and contact owner. I don't have first name, last name, and job title because that already shows up above it in the contact record. You don't need to have it there. It's just taking up extra space. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add a section here, okay? And I'm going to call this section just lead scoring. You can call it whatever you want, but we're just going to call it lead scoring. We're not going to do anything crazy with a conditional field. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in those two fields that we just created. So the first one is fit. It's right there. And then we also had engagement score. So let's grab engagement score. We'll pop it right in there, okay? So now we have this nice new little section on the left-hand side of the contact record. Let me show you what this looks like. So I'm going to go ahead and hit save. And I'm just going to quickly go into my contacts. I'm going to show you one of my contacts here. Here we go. We'll look at Derry. Hey, Derry, how are you now? So if we scroll down below where it says about this contact, we've got website activity, but we also have lead scoring. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to just swap these, all right? And under lead scoring, we now have bad and good fit, okay? Normally, we're just going to keep this. I mean, by default, this is going to be empty. It said unknown because I was messing around with it earlier. But here, you're going to see if they're a good fit or not, and then you're going to see what their engagement score is. That engagement score is going to go up when they meet those positive attributes that you set in that lead scoring property, okay? Now, the other place where someone may want to see this information is when they're looking at the view of all their contacts. So if we go back into contacts, we're all used to this table view right here, or these saved filters that we can create. But for instance, if we want to say like, okay, these are all the leads that we have to reach out today, maybe we want to actually sort them and prioritize them and reorder them based on that engagement score and that fit metric that we have. So we can reach out to the best fit, highest engaged contacts first, or vice versa, and kind of like move things around. So what we're going to do is we're going to hit actions. We're going to hit edit columns, and I'm going to bring in engagement score, and I'm also going to bring in fit. And maybe you do one of these, maybe you do both. It's kind of up to you. But the whole idea is now we have engagement score and fit right here. So when you build these different properties of like new leads that you get as a salesperson that you're reaching out to, you can adjust and kind of sort and order these based on, you know, most engaged leads at the top, least engaged leads at the bottom, and kind of work your way through it that day. Totally up to you. You can do this in a number of different ways, right? Cool. So now we have that data in there, but the question is, how do we make this fit metric change, right? So when we see fit here, we've got bad, we've got good. How do we make it say good fit? Well, that's pretty easy. What we can actually do is we can build a workflow that looks for contacts to meet certain sets of criteria that would make them considered a good fit for us, and then change that property when they meet that criteria. So let me show you what I mean here. So let's go into automation, let's go into workflows. All right, I'm going to create a new workflow here. I'm going to do a contact-based one. We're going to start from scratch, and I'm going to call this workflow make contact a good fit. Whatever you want to do. You can name this anything you want, right? We're going to hit next. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to add one simple action to this workflow. So I'm going to hit plus. I'm going to search for property. So set a property value is the action that I'm looking for. I want to change the property value of fit to good fit, and then hit save. Now, the secret to this is setting the right enrollment triggers that would make someone a good fit, okay? So what I want you to do is I want you to think about all the content you're creating and all the forms people are filling out. Maybe it's forms that you have for your downloadable content offers, you know, that you're using more in the attract phase or top of the funnel, as a lot of people used to call it. Maybe this is just one of the last forms that people are filling out right before they get to one of your sales reps. Either way, you should be doing some progressive profiling to understand more about your customers, the more and more content they download and engage with you with. So let's just kind of assume that, you know, your prospects are downloading different pieces of content and you're asking for certain bits of information to get a better idea if this person is going to be a good fit for you or not, right? Let's use the assumption that for my kind of fictitious company here, a good fit would mean they have the word director in their job title, their employees are over 100, and maybe their country is in the United States, right? So if I get a lead and it's a director, they are in the United States and their company has more than 100 employees, maybe that's, to me, what a good fit is, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set enrollment triggers here that will look for contacts that meet that criteria, and as soon as they meet all 3 of those things, it'll change their fit to good fit, okay? So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to go to Contact Properties. I'm going to search for Job Title. So we'll say Job Title contains any of Director. Doop. Cool. We're going to apply that filter. We're going to say, and contact property of, it's called number of employees is any of, and we'll say 100 to 500, 500 to 1,000, 1,000. You may have all this stuff set up differently. It's totally fine. Again, a good fit is going to be different for everybody, and hopefully you're capturing this information on forms ahead of time, all right? And then we'll do and contact information. We'll do country is any of United States. Cool. Apply, save, bing, bang, boom. Great. So now what's going to happen is as soon as I have a contact who meets my standards for a good fit, their property value of fit is going to get updated to good fit. That way, when a sales rep is just looking at a contact profile, they already know if they're a good fit or not, okay? So we're going to go ahead and turn this workflow on. So I'm going to hit review. I'm going to have it turn on going forward. Boom, boom, boom. So that's great. Now you can repeat that process for bad fit. So like, let's say you collect information and there's, different drop downs that people can select or information they can give to you that like immediately throw up a red flag and say, hey, you're probably not a good fit for us. You can repeat the same process with a workflow that sets someone to a bad fit. And that can help you with a lot of things down the line, right? Such as suppressing people from different workflows or nurturing paths. Maybe if someone fills out a form to get in touch with your sales team and you've already kind of marked them as a bad fit, maybe instead of getting them routed to a sales rep and sending a meeting link, you actually reply to an email saying, hey, you're probably not going to be a good fit for us. Here's some other resources or other companies we would recommend, just so that you don't leave a bad taste in their mouth and you actually continue to help them even if they're not a good fit for your product, okay? So there's that. Now, I want to show you one more little bonus workflow here that's going to be helpful because remember earlier I said that, you want to make sure lead scoring is going to be valuable for everybody. We've already kind of established why it's going to be helpful for a salesperson because they can prioritize their day and easily know what engagement means versus what's a good fit. But how could marketers use this, for example? All right. Here's like my kind of take on this. What if you have someone on your site who's highly engaged, but they haven't taken that next step to actually raise their hand and say, hey, I want to talk to sales, right? They usually indicate that by filling out some sort of like decision stage form that puts the hand raise up to say, yeah, I want to talk to a salesperson. So how can we isolate people who are good fits and haven't filled the form out yet and are also engaged so we can start to nurture them a little bit more effectively to sales or maybe even proactively assign them to a sales rep so they can kind of reach out on their own because that prospect hasn't taken that step yet. Let me show you how to do that. So what you're going to do is you're going to create a workflow here, and we'll just call this highly engaged, no hand raise. I don't know. You can come up with a better name than I can. So we're going to start from scratch here. We're going to hit next. What we're going to do is we're going to set an enrollment trigger here. And what we're going to say is we're going to say when a contact property of engagement score is greater than a certain number. Now, this is where you got to do a little bit of work and think about like, okay, I have all my positive attributes. I have the maximum score that someone can get. What is something that like I would consider kind of like a higher score, okay? I'm just going to pretend that my scoring goes from 0 to 100, okay? And maybe a high score for me would be like an 80, okay? But this is going to be different for you, so you got to put some thought into this, okay? So we're going to apply 80. We're going to say if the engagement score is greater than 80 and the contact property of fit is any of good, all right? And if we look at a form submission, let's isolate the decision stage form. So I'm pretending the decision stage form here is that like hand raise form. So think of this as like book a demo, book a consultation, talk to sales, request a quote, whatever your first sort of hand raise form or offer is for your sales team, you'd probably put one or more of those forms in here, okay? And I'm going to say they haven't filled out this form. Okay, so I'm going to apply this and hit save. So what this is going to allow me to do now as a marketer is take advantage of that engagement score and that fit property. And it's basically going to say, okay, cool, someone's super engaged, but they haven't taken that next step yet, and they're a good fit. We can enroll them in a workflow. Now, in terms of the workflows you do after this, you got to have one or two options, right? You could build like one sort of email nurturing workflow that would encourage this person to reach out to someone on the sales team. Maybe you also have a workflow that kind of proactively hands them off to sales, right? So maybe you assign a contact owner, you send them a little task or a little email that says, hey, we've assigned you this lead. They haven't raised their hand to talk to sales yet, but they're very engaged and they're a good fit. Maybe enroll them in a sequence or reach out one-on-one to introduce yourself to see if you can start a conversation with them. The sky's the limit here, right? But at least marketing and sales are both taking advantage of this very easy to understand number and this very easy to understand property that measures how good of a fit someone is. All right. So, build this however you want to build it, but I hope that's helpful. I'm going to come back into kind of the main page here. That's how I would recommend setting up your lead scoring in HubSpot if you want a very easy strategy to follow. But absolutely check out HubSpot's blog as well as HubSpot's Academy courses on the similar subject, just because there's a lot of great information on there. There's tons of great, lead scoring strategies that you can deploy. And of course, HubSpot's here to help you with all that kind of stuff. So check out your Academy resources, read the blog, call support, talk to your customer success manager, the customer success team, anything you got to do it. Maybe even if you have a partner, kind of bring them in to talk about it. But, when you're first getting started, I'd highly recommend keeping this as simple as possible. Okay. Anyway, I hope that was helpful. I hope everyone has a wonderful week, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.